Hi everyone and welcome to another video. I'm lauranemacquart and today I'm going to talk about my adventures for the Invisible Cities project, and I am going to talk specifically about Madagascar and Barbados. So if you want to know more about the Invisible Cities project, I'll leave some information down below, but it's a project in which I at least read a book and make some food from one specific country. And one of the countries for the month of May, we're in May now, was Madagascar. Now I had thought initially that I'd already read a book from a Madagascarian Malagasy author, but it turned out that that was not the case, and it was actually a book from a little island next to Madagascar, in the vicinity of Madagascar. So now I did some research, and because France was a colonizer of Madagascar, there are still a lot of books that are written in French. So this was an opportunity for me yet again to read a book in French, and I ended up reading Elle, printemps by Michele Rakotson. This was not the book that I was expecting it to be, because the main character in the book leaves Madagascar very early on. She's a young woman, and I'm not sure whether she left just when she's 18 to go start her studies, or that she goes to further her studies. She has a pen pal in France, in the north of France, and she kind of, in communication with that friend, decides to go to Paris and go to the north. However, when she arrives there, and this is really the beginning of the book, because you do have the section where she leaves her family, she tells them goodbye and such, but when she arrives at the airport, that friend isn't there. So you've got this very young woman who doesn't necessarily know what to do, and luckily for her she has a cousin or an aunt in Paris, so she goes there and she is helped by the children of that cousin or aunt, in a very small apartment, and you get to taste a little bit what such a life is like, arriving in a country that is completely different from yours, not knowing how the metro works, etc., etc., and having kids showing you the way and thinking about, okay, but what now? I mean, she was still going to study, but she still also wants to find that friend. She has to find a way also to get some money. She has to find a place to sleep because she can't stay at her aunt/cousin's house. And it's a very short book, so it's really about those first few months after arriving. And she also at one point leaves Paris to go more to the rural areas of France, and there also she gets a little bit of a impression of how that life is like and how the communities are different, those working class communities. As I said, it wasn't what I was expecting, because it was not about Madagascar. A little bit in the fact that she leaves and she does think about her family, and there are things that she compares to her previous life, but it's really more about her arriving there and all the novelty and all the feeling lost and lonely. So I'm also doing a Reading Around the World project, and I've been doing that for a couple of years, but I'm not going to count this book for Madagascar because it hasn't really told me anything about Madagascar. It was still an interesting read because it's about those first few months, and you don't really... It's not about someone settling, it's really about someone just being in this scary chaos, so it was good for that. And it was a very short book. And what I also appreciated, what I always appreciate with French books, when they aren't this very floral, flowy, super fancy French. This was just legit French, and I always appreciate that. Now, as for food, we actually ate that 2 days ago, I believe, and I made another curry. I was happy to find that they had curries. I always like that. I always like to find out the different mixes that there are. So this was a curry with some tomato, and there was a spice and there was a side dish that we could add, which is called Lasary, which was also a nice thing to add to the dish, because it wasn't just what for me is regular curry, where you just put a lot of stuff together and you just let it simmer a little bit and add a lot of spices. I've been, because of doing these curries, developing a little bit more of a understanding of what different spices do. mean, I still follow the recipe now, but it's less of a whatever, and I can kind of see what things start to go together and what doesn't. So that has been very nice. I hadn't expected this curry, this recipe to be something from Madagascar, but all the same, it was good. Now the other country that I wanted to talk about is actually a country that I've been cheating with, because I want to talk about Barbados, and Barbados is actually a country that is not picked for May, but it's one for June. Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord on audio, and planning wise it was good to read this audiobook right now. So Redemption in Indigo, I really liked it. It's about a woman. She's been together with her husband for 10 years. I think she's called Pama, and her husband eats a lot, and after 10 years she's sick of it, she leaves him. And in this world, this setting, there are some supernatural beings. They are called... No, I forgot what they're called. Jombe. They are called Jombe. And there are kind of Jombe that want to do good and Jombe that want to do bad. And these Jombe realize that Pama is a special person, and because of that they give her this magical stick. It's called a chaos stick, and with that she can make sure that some things that have a very small chance of happening do happen. However, the power of the stick has actually been taken away from one of the good Jombes who was not being so good. So he kind of goes after her. I really like this book because of the Jombes. I really liked their feeling. They were mysterious, but also very human. And the narrator of the book has a very cool voice as well. She's like this very old woman who's puts herself into the narration a lot. So she tells about, but I'm not going to tell you about that, or stuff like that. And I really liked her voice. It really gave me the feeling, just like with the book that I read for Equatorial Guinea, that I was sitting around the fire and now this old woman was telling us this story. So that was very nice. I would highly recommend the book, especially because it also has this fantastical feel to it. And again, I think it was pretty short. I think it was maybe 6 to 8 hours. But it was a lot of fun. There were just a lot of really funny things, as well as being about fate and consequences and stuff like that. So that was very good. Now I will admit, the highlight of my cooking for this video was definitely the food that I made for Barbados. I have a cooking book with some recipes from places around the world, and they had exactly one thing for the Caribbean, and that was a cake with ginger and some lemon and some chocolate. And last week, yes, I was on holiday for a couple of days and we were in an Airbnb and we thought there would not be an oven, so I decided to make this recipe because there was no oven needed. And it was delicious. So we crumbled the cookies, the ginger cookies. I even have a blister to prove it. And then the top was mascarpone with some lemon. No, not lemon. The green little lemons that I just forgot their names, and then chocolate on top, and just letting the whole thing be in the refrigerator for a while. It was very good, and you might all have lived through this as well, but one of the disadvantages of the corona life and not being able to see a lot of people is that when you make a cake, you basically have to eat it all by yourself. So I think we were able to eat that cake. It lasted for 3 days and it was very good. I would highly recommend it. Although, come to think of it, I'll leave the ingredients down below, and if I'm not too lazy to write them down, because as I said, I have it from a cookbook and I think the recipe itself is written in Dutch, so I can't really link it. But it was really good. So that kind of concludes this video, because those were the 2 countries that I did right now. I have just finished my book for Peru, and I'm going to do the food tomorrow, I think, with lunch, so you'll have that video to look forward to. And I'm currently reading a Romanian book that I'm also really liking, and I still need to find a recipe for that. So if you have any recommendations, I am completely here for it. If you've read either Elle, printemps or Redemption in Indigo, I'd love to talk to you about it, especially Redemption in Indigo, because it was just really cool. At least I found it really cool. And I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.